What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Jets Fishing Adventures. We are out here at the house, and we got a special video. Today we're going to continue the bass fishing for beginners guide, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 baits that every bass fisherman should have in their boat or kayak. Alright, a few weeks back we covered the top 5 rods that every bass fisherman should have. And this week we're going to run down 5 baits that every bass fisherman should have in their boat. But there's one bait that probably has caught more fish than any other bait. It's one of the most simple ways to fish. And I'd almost bet that your first fish came off of something similar. And that is a stick bait, a Cinco. This little bait right here can catch a bunch of fish. This is actually the 6-inch Gary Yamamoto, very famous brand. But in this category, we're going to talk about soft plastic worms. So we got this Torn Outdoors Striker 6.0. It's in the same category of this kind of Cinco. It's you can rig this on a Texas rig. You can Nico rig it. A little Cinco like this, wacky rig, that's one of my favorite techniques. You don't need a lot of knowledge on where to throw it. You can cast it up on a point, you can cast it underneath a dock, skip it up underneath lay downs, anything, and if the fish are there, you can probably get a bite. A few of my favorite ways to rig it is Texas rig. You just take a extra wide gap, probably 2 to 5/0 hook depending on the size of bait, or just take a little 2/0 circle hook, little Nico rig hook, and wacky rig it. It's this bait right here has probably caught more fish than any other bait we're going to talk about today, and it's a very simple, very easy way to fish, and you don't have to know all the specific things about bass fishing. You can get a 7-foot medium heavy rod, bait caster or spinning depending on your skill level, and Texas rigging, wacky rigging, shaky head. I love a shaky head on these as well. And just go flip around brush, skip under docks, and you'll catch some fish. Alright, bait number 2. If you follow the channel, you know I'm a big fan of this next bait. It's a bait that you can pick up, start skipping around docks, you can swim it back, you can flip lay downs, you can do a lot of, it's a very versatile bait, and that is a jig. This is the Bad Boy Jigs paired up with a Thresher timber crawl, one of my favorite techniques. This right here is a very versatile bait. The Bad Boy Jigs in particular, their head style, you can kind of swim it back really good, and it goes through grass and lay downs and rock really well. That's one reason why I love the Bad Boy Jigs. But one way to fish this is to flip a lot of boat docks. I love flipping boat docks this time, or not really this time of year, but during the summer, any of the hotter months, fish love to be underneath that cover, lurking in the shadows. And when you flip it, let it sink right in front, they have to hit it. A little pro tip though, go as light as you can, because it'll let the fish see it come down a little bit quicker, or a little bit slower, and it just gives it. I've caught more fish with lighter baits than heavier ones. Sometimes you can go a heavier one to get more of a reaction style bait, a reaction style bite, but I like going as light as I can. But a jig works year round. In the winter time, you want a trailer that's a little less action. That's one thing that I love about the timber crawl from Torn Outdoors. They have different action that you can break apart to make it have a more swimming action, and if you don't want all that action, you can leave them all together. But you can fish it around points, flipping around lay downs, docks. It's a very versatile bait. You can even fish it around grass. You can kind of throw it in there and kind of swim it back. How I fish it, I'll cast it out, let it sink, and I'll just give it little hops, or I'll just drag it depending on how active the fish want it. And that's number 2. One of my favorite ways to catch them. You can catch some big fish. So if you have a limit, if you're tournament fishing, tie on a jig. You can usually get some kicker fish, but it'll catch fish of all size range, and it's a really good way to mimic a crawfish. All right, my third bait, if you notice in any of my videos, once it gets kind of colder, I lock a spinning reel and a bait caster in my hand, and what I'm doing is cranking. This is a little square bill. This time of year, you can catch them up shallow, definitely with the red color. A lot of people think when the water's cold, you can't catch them shallow, but if you watch my videos, I prove you wrong. But any time of the year, fishing a crankbait is an awesome way to catch them. They're a little frustrating at times. Treble hooks are good at catching everything, and they're sometimes not good at catching fish. I got a buddy's dad, my best friend Tristan's dad, always says crankbait's good at catching everything but fish. But it's also pretty good at catching fish as well. I've won some tournaments off of cranking a red square bill just like this during the winter time. Any time of the year, if they're on schooling fish or if they're on a bait pattern, you can throw a square bill or a medium diver, kind of like this one. This is a MR6 from Bill Lewis. It dives about 7 to 8 foot, depending on line size. It can mimic a bait fish. You can mimic a crawfish really well, and it's more of a reaction style bait. Reaction is when a fish is just sitting there and you come by it, and he has to eat it. It's just in their nature that if it comes by their face, they have to react. So that's called a reaction style bite. Crankbaits are one of my favorite ways to fish. It can get kind of frustrating because you do lose a lot of fish. If you lose a lot of fish and you lose a lot of crankbaits because you get hung up, I would invest in a very high quality plug knocker like this to get your investment back. Some of these crankbaits can start costing a lot of money. Some of them cost upwards of $10 to $15 a piece, so having a good plug knocker is a must. One reason why I like this crankbait in particular, this is an H2O Express. You can get these crankbaits for about $5. They work really good. The hooks are pretty decent. I do change them out once they get some age to some owners. I'll put in the description the size and what kind of owner treble hooks I use, but other than that, that's the only modification I do. In future videos, I'll do a full walkthrough of all my crankbaits, kind of explaining what kind of setup. But for this video, we're just going to talk about this one. It's a great way to catch fish. It's a good way to cover a lot of water when you're tournament fishing, and you can win a lot of money with this little bait. All right, for number 4, this bait is a bait that I don't really fish a lot because I use another technique, but you cannot go fishing in the spring and not have one of these tied on. It's one of the best spring baits. Definitely when the water has a little chop on it and it's very cloudy, you want a spinnerbait. The only reason why I don't use a spinnerbait a lot is because I like a chatterbait more, but in certain situations, this little spinnerbait right here, you can't beat them. This is actually an H2O Express from Academy. They had them on sale, so I bought a bunch of them. I got them for like $2, but you can check your local Academy if they have that same sale. Spinnerbait is awesome around laydowns, around big boulders, around docks. And I love fishing a spinnerbait around grass. You get her on the edge of the grass, throw it out, just kind of reel it back real slow, give it a couple of hops. Another technique that you can do is yo-yo a spinnerbait. You can let it go all the way to the bottom and then hop it back to your boat. This bait right here is a very versatile way to fish. You can slow roll it, yo-yo it. You can burn it on top of the water, let this blade wake almost. But during the spring months, and really any time of the year, a spinnerbait is a really good way to catch them. I got it paired up with a Torrent Thresher 4.2. This little setup right here can catch fish, and it's a bait that I'll probably be using a lot more this year, just because a chatterbait can kind of, a lot of people are throwing chatterbaits now, and this can almost be kind of a sneaky profile, if you will. People not throwing it that much anymore, and you can go in behind people and wear them out using something that they don't see very often anymore, and that's a spinnerbait. All right, we're on to number 5. It might be the last, but it's not the least. and that is a buzzbait. If you know me, I love fishing a buzzbait. It's a very action-packed, very aggressive bite. You can see them come up and blow up on him. A topwater is always fun, no matter what kind of topwater you're throwing. But for me, I love a buzzbait. This is actually the Backdraft Lures buzzbait. It's one of my favorites. It's actually a new sponsor for 2025, so check them out online. But I actually got it paired up with a Thresher 4.2. This little Thresher right here has probably caught daggum nearly probably 70 fish. It is tore up, discolored, but it's still catching them. It's got a little bit of rust on the hook because it's so old, but if you can see it's still as sharp as can be. A buzzbait is really good on covering water. You do want to wait to throw a buzzbait until the water is about 65, around 60 and up. Just because the fish, when the water gets below 60, are not very active, not really hitting topwater stuff. But you can take a buzzbait during the summer, during the late spring, and early fall, maybe even late fall, depending on where you live in the country. But you can take a buzzbait, run down a bank, and you can catch some giants. You can catch some small ones as well. It's not always a big bass bait, but the bigger fish will usually go after it more and before the smaller fish. I've caught some giants on this bait right here, and it's a really fun bite. You see them blow up, and it's just an aggressive way to fish. It's one of my favorite ways to pre-fish because I can take one, I can file down the hook, make it not sharp at all, and I can cover a lake, just reeling it in, and if they blow up on it, I won't hook them. So it's a really good searching bait if you're trying to find an area that's holding a lot of fish, and you can actually visually see the size of fish. This is kind of the poor man's live scope, if you will, and it's one of my favorite ways to pre-fish, and it's one of my favorite ways to catch fish whenever the water's high enough, whenever the water temp's high enough to catch them on top water. It can get a little frustrating because you will lose a couple of them because they'll just go after the tail. But it's other than that, it's a fun way to fish, and it's an aggressive way, and it's a good way to catch some giants, and it's an easy bait to fish. You just throw it out, reel it in. Some of the places that I like to fish it, around grass, on the edges of the grass, depending on how thick the grass is, you can throw up in there, and if it's real kind of sparsal, like spaced out good, you can run it through that grass. Around docks, around laydowns, there's nothing better than to have it come over and you hit the laydown. It makes a little bit of a different noise, and that bass might be underneath it, and he's just ready to grab it. I do use braid on this because you don't really want any stretch when you set that hook, and braid floats, so it makes that bait set up, and it's easier to reel. I do recommend a high gear ratio, like an 8-to-1, 7-to-5. That way you don't have to reel as much to keep the bait up and actually turning. So this is the Backdraft Lures buzzbait. There's several different brands out there. You can go to Walmart, buy $1, but having a high quality one I do recommend because the hook is always sharp, and they make some really good baits, and they're a new sponsor to 2025, so go over there and check them out. Discount code will be linked below. Alrighty, so that's my top 5 baits that every bass fisherman should have. I probably should have done this video before the top 5 rods, but I've just been trying to come up with ideas to educate newer fishermen and to just get my YouTube channel out there. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're at like 880 today, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. 60% of viewers have not subscribed, so if you're one of those, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a ton. So without blabbing on, we're going to end this video off. Thank you for watching, and it means a lot if you would go in there and like and comment below, what did you catch your first fish on? It's really cool to see. My first fish was on a Cinco, just like I showed you. So it's really cool to be able to see what everybody else is without blabbing on. We will see y'all next week.